Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. And however you think we mean it, chances are we do mean it, building a better life. And every week we come together for 1 hour to talk about one element of what it means to build a better life. And we hope that it resonates with you. By we, I mean myself, JDK Winnikin, and the lovely, the amazing, the always seemingly in a good mood when she walks in here, and always something amazing to say every episode, Ashley Kniebel. Hi, Ashley.
Oh, well, hello.
How are you?
Well, after that, I'm very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Excited to be here. Today, we are going to be talking really about advice. Are you an advice seeker, Ashley?
Seeker. Ooh, I was thinking you were going to ask if I gave advice.
Well, I already know the answer to that question. I try to only ask questions that I don't know the answer to.
Oh.
I already know the answer to that question.
You know, occasionally I do seek advice.
You do seek advice
I don't know it all.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to talk about advice today, not in the sense of whether you should or not, but kind of exploring where we get our advice, because there are more places than ever before in this technological age we live in, actually, to get information or to get advice. But seemingly, based on kind of a lot of different measurements, we're not doing so well at picking the greatest advice, depending on what we're talking about. And so we're going to kind of unpack that a little bit. How's that sound to you for today?
That works for me.
Okay. So I asked, are you an advice? We are an advice giver. We already established that.
Am I a seeker?
Advice seeker. When you do seek advice, where do you seek it from and where do you not go?
Okay. Well, I do not go to the regular forums online.
Oh, okay.
Like ever.
You don't go to Reddit?
No.
Okay.
No. I think the first time I actually looked up anything on Reddit was like a year ago.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. So you're late to that whole thing.
And I'm totally fine never showing up for that,
Right.
honestly. But yes, so I don't do anything on Reddit. I don't spend a lot of time in the Google searches or answers unless I'm like trying to research something.
Right.
But if I'm going for advice,
Yeah.
I do not go to anything of like a wide span common meeting place for things.
So where do you go?
Usually depending on what it is, but most often I have a very small circle of people that I like, know, and trust and are older than me and I think are more wise than I am and have more life experience than I do.
Okay.
And that know me pretty well. And those are usually the ones that I trust enough to know that their advice is very sound and it's coming from a good place and it's not just going to try and make me feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I can relate to that. I think if I had to ask myself the same question, am I an advice giver and seeker? I try to be less of an advice giver now than I used to be. Some of that is from coaching, because in coaching you ask open-ended questions and all that kind of thing, rather than giving direct advice. The idea is to help people work through making their own choices, right? So I try to live that as best I can. And even in seeking advice, same thing. I don't go to online forums or anything like that. We'll talk about where the positives and negatives are with online forums, because there are some positives to them in theory, but then there's also some negatives. But I don't know. I'm not sure I'm always a person who goes and says, hey, I need advice on this. I oftentimes, and I don't know if it's because I just don't want to ask the question but I kind of go with curiosity. So this situation, how would you handle it? Or, it depends on what it is, right? For me recently, I've been asking for advice from people that I trust around money issues, around investment, budgeting, how to best work with my finances in ways that I haven't done before. And that's just like you talked about, people that I trust, that I know, and also have expertise in these areas, right? So how many, like when you ask for advice, like before you make a decision, like, is there like a general number of people you get to where you feel like I've asked enough people, now I need to make a decision? Or can you ever get gridlocked in looking for advice all the time?
I don't have a particular set of numbers of people to ask. And it's not like I mentioned before, I have maybe like 3 or 4 people I really, really trust that I might inquire.
Your board of directors?
My board of directors, yes. That I assigned. They had no idea. Lucky them. But it's not like I go to all of them and then be like, okay, well, I went and got all 4 opinions, so now I can make my decision. It's not like that. Usually it depends on the topic. I will talk with maybe one or two people, and then I will reassess and be like, between those two board of directors and myself, do I feel like I can make a decision? Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I can get a little bit more knowledge on this, and that might help. But even then, before I go and do that, sometimes I'll sit and weigh out the scales of, do you really feel like their knowledge and opinion will actually change anything?
If you acted on what their advice was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or do you think would it really make a difference? Would you feel more certain about making a decision because you have a third opinion backing it up? Or what would you do if then it was contradictory?
Right.
Now, is that going to actually like throw you for more of a loop? Are you confident enough already? Are you confident in the confidence that you have already?
Right. And I can also see there being benefit if you had conflicting pieces. And this has happened with me, where I'm weighing those two things together, going, which one of these seems more me, more plausible, more useful, depending on what the circumstance is. But man, if you get too many of those, that can be tough too. You ever got too many pieces of advice to know what to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say probably when I was younger,
Okay.
didn't feel very confident in my own knowledge base, didn't have a lot of worldly experience and things that I've gone through to build on my own 2 feet. So back then I would kind of get everybody's opinion.
Gotcha. And that didn't help very much.
No, because I don't think actually much of it was useful. A lot of it was just to make me feel good, or getting people's advice was a way of delaying making a decision.
It's okay. Awesome. Can you think of any specific example? You don't need to talk about it now, but maybe file it away for later. Can you think of it?
Do you want an answer now?
Sure. If you have one, if one immediately comes to mind.
I mean, I would say probably like early on in my dating life type of thing. You know,
okay.
like you have, should I break up with him? Should I not? Should we make it work? Should I not? You know, and
Valid questions, by the way.
yeah, they are valid. And looking back, I'm like, I really didn't know the depth of what that question was that I was asking. That if, you know, if you could take this advice and go back, right? But what I would ask my friends and the people close to me, and then all my girlfriends, because we want to sit and gab about it and you know, whatnot. And I'm like, at that time, like, they didn't know any better.
Sure. Yeah, there is that. There is that.
Which, you know, they did their effort to make me feel good, but again, I don't think their advice was helpful.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, the reason I'm asking all these questions, and really you've kind of elucidated all the things that we're going to talk about here.
You're welcome.
In some ways. Thank you. I knew you would. Just kind of was confident about it. It's because there's so many different pieces here, right? You're talking about an example where you were mainly talking to friends when you're talking about the dating example when you're younger. Talking to friends, and what can easily happen when we talk to friends is we go for them for advice. We just say we need advice, and what we're going to them for is empathy or emotional support, or vice versa. We can say we're going for emotional support and we end up getting advice, right? I don't know about you, but there's nothing that drives me crazier faster than somebody giving me advice when I didn't ask for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to ask permission.
Yeah. Do you cut that off if somebody's giving you advice that you haven't asked for? Do you cut it off like I do?
Sometimes.
I do. And it always surprises people when I do that because I don't normally do that with stuff. I usually like let stuff roll. Like if someone's sharing something, I let something roll. But when that happens, someone's giving me advice I didn't ask for, and the other one that I cut off right away. If somebody tells me what I'm thinking or what my reality is on something.
Do you give anybody a pass?
Do I give anybody a pass? Maybe for a little bit to make sure I'm right. That's what they're actually doing.
So like if your parents are saying something to you, you're not like, I didn't ask, Mom. Stay in your lane.
My parents will get the most leeway.
Sure.
They will get the most leeway. Mainly because I know, first of all, where they're coming from. And I've had conversations with my folks about these things before, and they know what I prefer. My parents sometimes catch themselves when they do it. Like,
so smart.
I know, you didn't ask for my advice. Like, that's okay. You can give me your advice. Particularly if I know they would feel better saying it. I want them to feel better. So yes, if anybody gets more leeway, it's probably my parents on those things. But I have no problem saying to them, hey, I appreciate that you're concerned about this, and I've got it covered. At the same time, sometimes when advice, if it's given from a benevolent place, it's a little bit easier. But when somebody's trying to give me advice because they don't want to worry about something, or they just want to end the conversation, or they want to move on to something else, that bothers me.
Or they want to feel really good about themselves.
Sure.
And so telling you something is feeding something for them.
Right.
Yeah, those are my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell. If you're watching on the stream, you can see that.
I'm like, really?
Yeah, you can see the tone of the voice doesn't match the expression on her face. Okay, well, so let's talk a little bit, Ashley, with all this in mind, about why this can be so difficult, right? Let's talk about that first. And, first of all, if we aren't considering when we need advice, where we're going to go get it from, and we just talk to the very first person who comes about, it can be really easy, particularly coming from an emotional place. And that's usually where we start looking for advice. When we're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, emotionally pressured, emotionally full, we tend to have an emotional response or emotional need to get advice, quote unquote, when that may not be actually what we need. It might not actually be what we're really wanting, but it comes out as, I need advice, right? And the problem with that is, and this is not just me saying it, but it's a lot of studies saying this, Harvard Business School, PMC, other big entities that focus on this stuff. The problem with that is if you go into something looking for from an emotional space, looking for advice, you may not measure the advice effectively in order to make decisions, right?
Sure.
There's an urgency to that because usually the idea of getting advice is we want to solve a problem or we want to fix something so we don't have to feel bad about it or feel upset about it or feel anxious about it anymore. It's usually an anxiety-driven thing. That's usually where it comes from. So that can make accuracy difficult to gauge, right? We can also end up oversampling. You don't seem to have that problem. So good on you.
I mean, I did as a kid.
Oh, sure. And we
Or
all
like
do.
a young adult, but
We all do.
like you said, you need to think of the value of the opinion you're getting. And like we were saying, neither one of us really go to large forums online to read a bunch of opinions or to, like social media platforms or whatnot.
Because if it's for the quality of a product I want to buy, it's one thing.
Right. Yeah. Like that review matters.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
if you're looking for advice for something very close and particular to you, you need to find quality advice. And first, I will say kudos for not having an ego and being willing to ask and not thinking like that you know it all and you know best. Like accepting that detail of like somebody else may know better and I can improve based off of what they can share with me.
Yeah.
However, there can be something about getting too many opinions and overloading yourself, because I had that issue when I was younger. I would get all these opinions from these lovely people I cared about, like my friends and family. And then if I didn't go with their opinion, then they got upset because I didn't do what they told me to do.
Right.
Or then I maybe gave them a bunch of information, example, like somebody I was dating or whatnot. And I'm like, well, this is what's going on. I don't know if I should say or should I go? Great song, by the way. And they were like, oh, no, you should totally go. And then I end up staying, right? And then they're like, she's putting up with all that? And, it can just lead. So I have learned less is more.
Yes.
Sharing a little bit less or being very particular and attentive about who and what you share.
Yeah.
Make a huge difference on the type of opinion you get back.
Right. Because there are studies that show that kind of oversampling like that leads to real problems because we tend to want to get stuff that makes us feel better, right? So, but advice isn't about feeling better, right? We might be having an emotional response to whatever situation we need advice for, but that doesn't mean that having the emotion lessened or numbed or reduced means that advice is the best advice, right? Sometimes with like the friends that we have, right? When we vent to them, our friends are there to back us up, right? Our friends, generally speaking, want us to feel better. They want us to feel empowered. And so sometimes they'll just, whatever, I'll show up, we can go take care of this together, that kind of thing. That might not be what's needed, right? That might not be what's needed. But what is needed in that is the emotional support of what might be unspoken behind that and maybe should be spoken more. And this is something I try to say to my friends when either they're seeking advice or I feel the need to kind of speak an observation. No matter what you choose, I'm with you. Here's what I see, and these are the concerns that I have. If any of those are made up, just discard them. But here's what's there, right? I think that's a lot more effective from a giving space because my friends don't necessarily need help making decisions, right? It's to what degree do they feel like in a moment where they're looking for support,
Right.
they have it, right? Because I don't want to be one of those people that says, do this, and then they don't do it, and they're just, right? What happens with that, right? So now the other thing that's a problem with that, with going to friends or driving yourself from an emotional space, and we only have a couple minutes here before our first break, is what can ends up happening is we give too little weight to advice unless we're able to establish what its credibility is, okay, generally speaking. So that raises the question, how do you discern when advice is coming from a credible source, right? This is a huge question in general, but it's an even bigger question in the last 10 years in the middle of the technological revolution where we're into. Just because someone has, 1.2 million followers on Instagram because of the things they talk about and post about 10 times a day does not necessarily make them an authority on said subject, right? It does not, right? And yet the ability to discern that, particularly in the social media space where we are literally getting flooded with image after image, person after person, voice after voice, all those things makes it really tough. And the algorithms, of course, in social media feed us the things that we slow down on the most, right? So we just get more and more channeled into the same things over and over and over again.
Yes.
Right? Same things, which is maddening to see when it happens to you.
You're like, they caught on?
Oh, I should have stopped a while ago. Okay. All right. So I think we've kind of laid out what we're going to talk about here today. So for all of you listening, be thinking about when are the times that you go for advice? How do you tend to feel when, what are the common feelings that you have? Where do you go to? Who do you go to? Do you have a board of directors? If you do, is it too big? If you do, is it too small? If you don't, should you have one? And all those types of things. No easy answers here, of course, but I think it's always worth taking a look at, that line, that relationship between when we can trust ourselves and when we can trust the advice we get from other people. All right. What do you think, Ashley? Ready to go?
Great. When we come back.
All right. And we will come back in just a minute here on Staying Power. Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are talking about getting advice. Where should we get it from? How should we go about looking for it? How well do we understand why we are looking for it the way we are? And then, of course, what to do with it. So we talked in the first segment, Ashley, about some examples for us and some of the challenges in this. And I think if we were going to break this down for our listeners into kind of two dividing points, I think when it comes to advice, we need to start being really clear about what we're looking for. Are we looking for comfort in a given situation, or are we looking for competence? Now, we could be looking for both, right? If we have a good trusted friend who, we have a certain situation, I'll take mine, like my financial stuff, the advice I've been getting. I have a couple of friends who are really good at this. I have one friend in particular who is really knowledgeable on this stuff and also is a great friend who knows how to provide comfort and empathy and understanding. And so I go to her on a regular basis and I get both, right, from those things. However, I am really clear that what I'm seeking is, okay, what do you think on this? The competence. Her background is in finance. She does very well for herself in terms of her own financial planning and saving and all that kind of stuff. But I also know that I'm going to get some comfort out of that. But every once in a while, I think I talked about her a couple of weeks ago. She can give me a good swift kick in the butt when it comes to.
I recall this.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So she's good at that. But
have I met her? Sounds like we'd be friends.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a fan of anybody who's willing to give me a swift kick in the butt. I know this. But nevertheless, I think differentiating that, because it can be really easy to want comfort and then the advice doesn't land well if the advice is difficult, right, to hear. But we also, if we're looking for advice on a certain situation, certain decision we have to make, we also have to be prepared that we may not get an answer or advice that makes us feel exactly that comfortable, right? So with that, what do you think of that dividing line, comfort and competence?
I think it's a completely valid one to consider when looking for that, because that would be a really good question to ask yourself is, what am I really looking for right now? Do I need a soundboard just to sort through my thoughts, person to listen, and a person to give open-ended questions and some insight, and that's it? Or do I really actually want to pose the question of, I need advice. You have knowledge. Can you give me some of your knowledge on this so then I can take that information and go back and make a sound decision? Because that's just it, is a lot of times we look for other people to make the decision for us, right? Because it's uncomfortable. And so it's so much easier having somebody else tell you what to do when it's uncomfortable. That's the one time we enjoy being a kid, because we're just told what to do. We don't have to think about the difficult things. It's being laid out for you. That's the great fun thing of being an adult, is you get the freedom to make decisions about what you want to do with your life.
Right.
And that includes the difficult, really impactful ones.
Right.
And I speak from experience on this, of when I was peeking into my adult life and starting to make more impactful decisions for myself, that I found I would still go to people they're very competent people. And because they're so competent, I'm like, make the decision for me.
Oh.
And they were wise enough to tell me, no, I will give you more information to help you build a foundation to create a decision on.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to make that decision for you. That is still up to you. That dividing line was kind of like a sweet kiss and a slap in the face at the same time, to be honest.
That's really well put.
Because I'm like, ugh, it didn't feel great because it didn't solve my initial problem of like, make the decision for me. But I'm like, but I walked away with something really valuable and I can use this. And I'm actually better off after that conversation, even though I didn't walk away with originally what I hoped for.
Right. Right. And it's a great reminder to all of us, because we can turn this around and talk about giving advice, right? We could do a whole, what to do and what not to do. That would seem to me to be on page 1 of giving advice. It's like, no. If somebody's looking to for you to make the decision for them, steer clear of that, right? And just say, here are the options, right? That type of thing. So it's so important in all of that. And again, kind of coming back to my earlier comment, then say, I'm going to support you either way. Right. And if this happens, we can talk again. Right. Or if something goes wrong, we can talk again, that type of thing. Another piece that comes with this, though, is I think it's important to ask ourselves, when we are looking for advice, how much of this is being driven by something that is urgent or feels urgent emotionally? Like, I got to figure this out so I can feel better. Does it actually have urgency to it that you need this advice to make a decision this quick, right? Or is this something that's advice where you really need to be coming from a place of deliberation, something that needs time to figure out? Now, there may not always be a differentiation between those things. And sometimes depends on the advice. Like if something has happened, like you're in a car accident and you've been hurt and you need a injury attorney, you need to find one.
We know one.
Right, we do know one. An excellent one, as a matter of fact. However, that's one thing. Like, who do you know that can do this? Because then hopefully you're reaching out to somebody you trust and they can recommend somebody, since you trust them, you feel better about trusting whoever they're recommending, right? There's that. But if we are treating something with urgency, it's worth asking the question, is it really urgent in the sense of I have to make this decision rapidly? Or am I just feeling so uncomfortable, I want this discomfort to go away? And so I'm pushing that. Because if it is that, we are likely to tack towards the thing that is going to make us feel better the fastest, which may not be the best advice and might be somebody telling you what to do. And, there's all of it.
Or that means putting that decision off as long as you can because it's uncomfortable.
Right. Right.
Because you know what could possibly be your repercussions on the other side. And sometimes you don't actually always, you never feel ready. And feeling ready, I think, is just a fluffy idea. No one ever feels like you're never really ready. You're ready when you start taking action and you start making that decision. Or you start putting into place the things that you need to do so you're fully supported when you make that decision. But never feel ready.
Yeah.
That's garbage.
Yeah, it is. And I agree with you. And it's the same thing that people say about motivation, right? I'm not motivated to do it yet. Actually, motivation comes from taking action in said direction. And then the motivation follows, right? It actually doesn't work the other way around. Same thing. That's really good. That's really good. And of course, and what can be so easy too is sometimes these days people go to one of two sources. Crowd sites, like Reddit, you mentioned, or AI, right? And enter in those things. And AI is the one, of course, that's so revolutionary lately. That's going to have to kind of play out, I think, for a while. people going to that for therapeutic advice and, all that kind of stuff. But that's, of course, just accumulated by whatever's on the internet, of course. And then crowd places like Reddit, that type of thing, they're really popular for a reason, but they're counterproductive in the sense of if you have an urgent decision you need to make, I wonder what you're hoping to get there. Besides you're going to get 1 million points of view, you're going to get at least a few people who call you names, right?
Oh, of course.
So you're going to not feel any better about the situation. And there's absolutely no way to vet anybody who's on there for who they are, what they might be about, whether they're actually real. Could be a chatbot for all you know. There's so many things about that are a problem. And crowds, and this is the problem with having too many people give advice, it just gets noisy. It's not all that helpful. So,
Well, and I mean, I know people, and I'm not like shaming these people for going on those sites and whatnot.
That's
but
fine. I will. I'm just joking. joking.
Did we swap seats for
Joke.
once?
I know. I know.
But I mean, I would hope people would stop and consider like the source of what they're looking for and the source of where they're looking.
Yeah.
And do you want a high quality answer? Do you want a really valuable piece of advice, or are you just looking to doom scroll around and delay finding your advice because now you're reading other things that probably have nothing to do with what you're looking for in the first place? That's why I think I steer clear so far from those things, because that's what I see them as. It's just a down the rabbit hole scroll. And it doesn't usually bring a lot of value. It will stir up a lot of emotions that then just cloud your inner focus of trying to make the decision in the first place.
Yeah, and I think some of it comes from a well-meaning place of let me read what people have to say, what are the differing opinions, maybe some things I hadn't thought about. But once again, these are all from just random people who are anonymous on the internet. And particularly when we live in this age of so much information at our fingertips, so many places, and yet that by its very definition makes it hard to discern what's quality and what isn't. So let's talk a little bit about some of those things. So let's go back and forth here, Ashley. What are some characteristics, in your opinion, of who to listen to and who not to? Like, when is somebody worth listening to and when are they not worth listening to?
I would always say somebody who has a very good, sound moral compass.
Okay.
Now, that is also based on personal opinion.
Okay.
Because I do know some people that look up to those and they're like, oh, they're so great because of this, this, and this. And then I know people literally on the other side of that coin, they're like, oh, that person's terrible because of this, this, and this, right? So it's a personal choice of who do you think has a good, sound moral compass.
Is that another way of saying like matches your values that are the same to you? Okay.
Or
has certain ethical principles?
Yes.
Okay.
Ones that either A, you have and want to further solidify, or B, that you're striving to figure out how to be more like.
Okay.
Hopefully it's a good person.
Okay. So in that sense, their values and their character matching either kind of how you are or where you want to be is okay. That's a good one. I like that. One that I think of is who has expertise out there that can kind of help you not just empathize with your problem, but actually give you almost a map of how to view it, right? Because what usually ends up happening when we're looking for advice, we don't even know what we don't know on something. So where we're asking somebody who's got expertise, they can kind of fill in the gaps of here's some things to think about, right?
Yeah.
Kind of comes back to what you're saying earlier about here are these things. I'm not gonna make a decision for you, but here's what you should know. A, B, C, however many there are, 1, 2, 3. And then if you choose one, beware of A, B, and C, right? Those kinds of things. Somebody who can help you map the problem, because I really think, and I see this with clients a lot, if you give somebody an opportunity to map something or give them pieces of information they can add in, whatever anxiety they're feeling in the moment, whether it's from a deliberative space or an emotional urgency space, they start to relax. They start to feel more empowered a little bit more because they start being able to see a little bit more of a larger map. Well, I think that matters as well. Okay. So values and kind of ethical principles that match up, expertise. What else?
People who are good at seeing the bigger picture.
Okay.
Because sometimes we get so deep in the muck and emotions of our daily decisions and this thing that we're facing and whatnot. And one thing is they're not emotionally attached, right? So it's a little bit easier for them to give advice on a decision.
Or as much. Right.
Yeah, right. They're
Right.
not as close to the, how do you say the difference between the bark and the tree or something like that?
Oh,
What's that?
seeing the forest for the tree, but
Mhm.
sometimes we can get so locked in we can't even see the tree for the bark.
There you go. Yeah. So you're
That's a
so
favorite
focused
of
on
mine.
looking at the bark that you can't even see the tree, and they can see the whole forest. And
Yes.
so it's almost like you're in like a corn maze. Oh, hi. 'Tis the
Mhm.
season. And you're, you're like
All about the fall,
stuck
Ashley,
in the
is.
corn, and you're trying to figure out how to get it out of this maze. And you're talking to somebody that can see like the entire thing. And they're like, just keep going in the direction you're going. You're going in a great place. And they're like trying to help you get through it
Without doing it for you.
without doing it for you. And
Warmer,
they're just,
warmer, colder,
right,
colder.
giving
Right.
some guidance, guiding you. But because they can see the grander picture of it, and maybe because they've gone through this before, or they're so much wiser and they've lived longer, that they're like, honestly, this feels like a huge mountain for you right now, because it might be a life-changing decision in some capacity.
Yeah.
But in the grander scheme, your life is still probably going to be pretty good. It's going to keep going. You're going to have so many more decisions and opportunities to make in the future, that this one's not quite as large and heavy as it feels right now.
Oh, I like that. I like that. And I think what that implies too is another point that I would make is somebody who can tell you that and can kind of approach it that way. Not only are they going to be approaching from expertise, but they've got skin in the game, right? In part because you're going to them for advice, but also because they're coming at it from a position where they want their expertise to be shown, not in a prideful sense, but they're accountable for that. I'm giving this person advice. I want to make sure it's as sound as possible.
Sure.
And I think finding people who or you get a sense, or other people will tell you if you're being referred to them, have that accountability, I think matters a lot. And a part of that I always try to do in coaching and things like that, man, the people who give me advice, who are willing to admit what they don't know and willing to share with me when they're uncertain of what the best thing is to do, or there could be a lot of things that come out of this, right? So I'm not sure exactly what to say, but I will tell you, here are your options, right? Or here's some things to think about. I like that. Somebody who doesn't think they've got the exact piece of advice that I need, no matter what it might be, that to me is a much more trustworthy person than the person who's just who thinks whatever they have to tell me is going to be pure gold just because they're telling me that, right?
They like hearing themselves talk. We have a couple minutes. Who do you think is the type of person or source that's not the most ideal to go to?
Not the most. I really think you have to have some sort of knowledge of who the person is, or if you don't know who they are, what their expertise is. I think you have to spend some time getting to know who that person is. If it's for professional advice, that's easier, obviously, right? You can go to their business website. You can see what their reviews are, all those things. You can talk to people who know them or have used their services. That's one thing. When it comes to outside of that, I think it has to be people that you feel like, no matter, first of all, that when you go to them, they're going to listen, and you feel like it's going to be something that they're going to be able to hold on to, ideally not judge you for, if at all possible, but people that you think can give you a better map. I don't think it needs to be, I really don't think advice in the end turns out the best advice is do this or do that.
Right.
It's not that. The advice or the perspectives that help me see what my best options are, you said it at the top of the show. You're the one who really knows what the issue is, and you're the only one who's going to be able to know what you're comfortable doing or not doing. We have to be able to experience that and engage in our own agency, even if the advice we take or what we act on turns out not to work out the way we want to. I think we have to learn how to be okay with that.
Sure.
So, okay. All right.
All right.
Well, we got more to say on this. So we will come back after another break. And not only will we continue this conversation, but we will have our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take 2 minutes to talk about either a triumph or a terror that happened to us during the week. And you'll have to find out which one we're doing this week after we come back. So come on back in a minute here on Staying Power. Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are talking about advice. What's the best kind of advice to look for? Who do we get it from? Where should we not get it from? How should we weigh it? All those fun things. We covered a lot of ground here, Ashley, and so we have a few more things to say about this. But first, it is time for our weekly segment. This week, it is 2 minutes of terror. Here we go. Scream is so good, right?
With you sometimes.
I know.
I don't know. All right. My terror, it's so difficult to, say this, but I am human. I've been noticing more gray hairs.
Oh, no.
I know. And I'm like, is it just a Halloween thing? Like, it's going to go away, right? I'm kidding. I'm just embracing. I'm almost 35. Like, that sounds weird to say, but this is where we're at. But I'm like, I thought this only happened to people like in your 70s, okay? So I was not expecting, because when I was younger, I'm like, old people have, gray hair.
Right.
I wasn't expecting at my ripe young age to have this.
Okay. Like how many are we talking about, Ashley? Because I'm looking at you right now and I don't see any.
Because I dye my hair.
Ah, okay.
Duh.
Okay.
There's just certain, like if I pull my hair back, then I can see like during, like in my part and here on the sides and whatever. And I'm like, what are those?
So articulate the terror, just the idea that this means you're getting older?
I just wasn't expecting that. Well, because we associate that with a sign of age, and I do not feel old.
Neither do I, but I'm a lot older than you.
And so I'm like, am I? Do I need to face a reality here that I'm not facing? Am I in denial? Like, what's going on?
We can all say, no matter what age we are not as young as we used to be.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. I mean, I definitely like where I'm at. This is like prime right now. I'm loving
you
my
are.
30s. 30s are great. Can I just stay here?
No, you can't.
Can't. So now I'm like, great, in 5 years when I hit 40, how many more gray hairs am I going to have?
Probably more, but you're going to cover them up because you're dyeing your hair. So now what I will tell you is they do increase, but you like your 30s. 50s are fun. The 50s are fun because you really do recognize more and more what you really care about and what's not worth caring about at all.
Sure.
And there's some liberation in that. And I've got more grays.
Oh, yeah, I actually saw a few in your chin hairs over there. I was like,
along the side of my hair, and it's, what.
Yeah, but the silver fox thing on men is a great look.
It's true. But
I haven't heard them be like, that silver foxy lady over there. I never
But you know what, though? But I also think that's not true. I think there's a lot of women I see who have gray hair who look great. And I think more women would benefit from just embracing that because it's actually natural and real, and that's where you are. But to each his own, right? Make your own decisions. Okay.
So that's where I'm at.
All right.
Where are you at with your
terror?
You know what? Wow.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Deep, deep terror. Right now, it's about the fact that you're talking about being in your 30s and I'm in my 50s. So
Is that what your terror is?
No, that's not my terror.
I was like, wow, okay.
I'm actually buying time because I blanked on my terror. So, because I just got so transfixed on your whole idea. So how about I run with this one? My terror right now is the fact that I can't remember what my terror was. So this it's old age. Exactly. So we have found a common thread here.
Yeah, like last week you forgot your keys and then your phone.
I know there is that. Oh my gosh, you're right. That's right. That was last time. Yeah. So maybe that's the terror, but that is actually what I've got is the terror is I'm actually right on the radio looking right in the camera. I don't know what it is. It's gone. Okay.
Well, that's all right. We can embrace that too.
All right. So maybe I need to get some advice on how to strengthen my memory.
It's okay. I write it down.
I write it down.
That's what I do. I support myself.
Okay. Thanks for rolling with that, Ashley. Okay. All right. Back to here in the last segment, talking about where should we go for advice and how do we measure it? And hopefully everything we've shared so far with all of you listening has been helpful in kind of discerning out a few things. And just not more so, really not to give you advice on how to get advice, but to just kind of talk about the things that kind of get in the way or the things that we don't notice because it's such an automatic thing. When we want advice, there's usually an urgency behind it or maybe a sense of needing to get it done or needing to get it addressed right away. And we've talked about a lot of different challenges, of course, but it's worth remembering a couple other things. Wherever we're getting advice is going to come with the biases of the person giving it to us. People tend to give advice, for understandable reasons, from their own experience of what has worked for them and what hasn't worked for them, no matter what we're talking about, right? And that's why it's worth remembering that, which is, so maybe asking 3 or 4 different people for some things, seeing what the common threads are, can be really helpful. Something that I do sometimes. If it's really something that I know nothing about, and I'm not sure if asking one person is enough based on their expertise, I'll ask a few and just see what the common threads are.
Right.
And those common threads help me a little bit more. Right. So it's important to be aware of that. Right. So they tend to be, people recommend based on what has tended to work for them. Right. So, so some real life examples of things like this, it's easy for us as coaches, right, to say a coach and a mentor is a really, really good place to start. Why do you think that's the case? A coach or a mentor as opposed to a really good friend?
Well, because coaches and mentors come with the idea that they've gone through some sort of training, certification, expertise. They've spent time studying a particular topic or things that they have more tools in their toolbox. And so we automatically give them, what is the word I'm looking for? We automatically give them the up on a platform that like they must know more than me.
Credence, right? Give them credence for that. Sure.
They must know more than I do. They must know more than like my neighbor or my friend because they have spent time dedicating to this particular practice and whatnot. And that's not necessarily wrong. Coaches are great. Mentors are great.
Yeah. And coaches and mentors sometimes know questions to ask, even if they're not really experts in the area that you're looking for advice in. It's more about, okay, well, what can you ask or what can you do to get more information that would be helpful for you, right? I think one thing as a coach that I'm always aware of is sometimes people are looking for advice as a shorthand to not have to investigate it themselves.
Yeah.
To do that. And that combined with like wanting somebody else to make the decision for you is a fear-based response and a lack of trust in oneself, right? To make a decision and be able to live with that. And that can come from a lot of things. For people who are perfectionists, that can be really, really, really tough, right? To not only ask for advice because you feel imperfect doing it, but then to make a choice based on said advice because perfectionists tend to want to make the perfect choice with the perfect outcome,
right?
Even though you cannot predict what that outcome is going to be. So that can make it tough.
Well, one thing I guess it probably would have fit better in our last segment, but it'll fit equally well in this one, I think, is also when you're looking at who is good, you do want to look on the flip side of who, like we said earlier, who is not necessarily good. And mentors and coaches, obviously, if you're going to one that has a certificate backing or has gone through practice and studies and whatnot, is good. Those that even then I'm like, I would like to know more about their personal self. And that's not something that I am given rights to, right? Like if I don't know them outside of a professional setting, like that's all you know. But knowing people and what they've been through and what kind of person they are, to me is really important to know, should I even merit any of their advice? Because if I don't like the life that they live, why would I want to get advice from them? Now, it can be double-sided.
Sure.
Because you could say in the examples I've been using where it's like relationship advice. Do you want to, and you've got questions, do you want to go to somebody that you know has a super healthy, long-term relationship and get advice from them about like, what worked or what do they do and how do they handle difficulty? Or do you want to go to the person that you know that's been divorced 3 times? Because they also know things. Now, depends if they feel like they were the thread in all 3 of those or, or if like circumstances happen and whatever.
They might also be great on advice of what not to do.
Exactly. Right. I'm like, there are equal amounts of probably decent advice in both of those. But I would probably look at, if I'm looking for relationship advice of what's going to work, I'm like, I want to talk to the people of what worked. If I want to talk to somebody who is a business owner who is wildly successful and has gone through a lot of ups and downs, but came back and has figured out how to work through things, that's the type of person I want to go talk to when I'm looking for like business advice, is the person that's gone to the rock bottom before or started there and worked their way up. Like I want to look at the trajectory of what people have done to know if I follow their advice, would I be following in their footsteps? And is that the kind of path I would want to go on?
Right. Right. I think with a coach and a
not?
mentor, I think that absolutely there's more room there, right? Because I think a good mentor or coach in part is going to share a little bit of their own experience.
Mhm.
That's why that is. With a therapist, for example, you're not going to get as much of that, right? Most therapists are trained not to share,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
the idea is their expertise and their objectivity and their a little bit of distance, a little bit of, from that is going to encourage that person, their client, to have to stand on their own 2 feet and act on their own agency. The flip side of that, though, is that if you're going to a credentialed therapist, right, that person's had to do a lot of work to get to that
Right.
point where they're sitting
Right.
in front of you, and you have to decide whether you're going to trust that expertise or not.
Mm-hmm.
Same way if you're taking a college class, right, you're going in and hope that professor has training in what they're,
Sure.
they're doing, right?
Sure.
There's sort of that understood relationship, but you may not be getting that personal touch either, right? But those, of course, are a little different because when it comes to money questions, legal questions, medical questions, we don't have the same expectation, right? We don't go to the doctor and say, okay, doctor, I want to hear more about personally why this treatment or this therapy or this medicine that you're recommending has worked so well. Obviously it depends on what it is that we're looking for. What are the things you see with kind of online forums or online things that are both positive and negative? Do you see any positives in some of these? I know you don't go to them very much.
Sure. I mean, I dink around on some of the media platforms from time to time, and most of them are not positive. However, that doesn't mean positivity does not exist
Sure.
there. I just think the negative ones are louder.
Mm.
They are more popular because they attract more differentiation of opinions, and it elicits people who have strong opinions behind keyboards to unite. And sometimes when your life is a little dull and you need something to distract you from your life, you will seek out that kind of drama, right?
Sure.
There are positive ones on there though, and if you seek them out, you will find them.
Oh yeah, and they'll find you.
Yeah, I do believe what you seek out, you will find.
Yeah, yeah.
It just might take a little more digging.
Right. It certainly has the advantage of speed, right? If you need to get information or you want advice or want to read other people's advice and see that other people out there are struggling with the same question or have asked advice before, that's probably the biggest draw I would think of Reddit, right? It's all these questions and people gravitate towards the questions that they've asked themselves, right?
Yeah.
So what would this be? So there's that. There's a sense of community, but only to me it's on the most shallow, of level, at least at first. However, I also know that there are online platforms, subreddits, and things like that for groups that feel really stigmatized or alone, or, it's an area difficult to talk about with family, where you can go and hear from people who are in similar situations. I know it can certainly have advantages there, and certainly they also can point to resources, right? There are those positives I see, but certainly when it comes to accuracy, nuance, emotional guardrails, right? These communities just tend not to have them because they're refereed by,
Well,
if
they're
somebody
not
is
supposed to.
Right.
I mean, we go there with the expectation that they're like a potluck of people and opinions, and you're just taking a little bit of everybody's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where I think it's important to draw a distinction between getting advice that's really sound and getting peer support. Those two things can overlap, but I think it's important not to assume they overlap. That peer support on something, if somebody says, yeah, I know exactly how you feel, I've been there, here's what I did, here's what I think, blah, blah, blah. The peer support part of that can be great. You're not on your own. You're not the first person to face this. You're not the last. There's some comfort in that. But to think that by itself constitutes sound advice, I think can be problematic. Actually can end up being kind of disappointing, right? And particularly for online ones. But even groups like peer support groups that meet in person, you get 50 opinions on something that you should do, you can kind of get frozen in place by those things. And that doesn't feel much better. You're like, maybe, okay, all these other people see me, but none of us know what to do. Right. That says, okay, so 50 people can feel just like me, but 51 of us have no idea what to do. That may not be all that helpful either. So I think that's important, right? So I think for me, those things, if they are important, they're a starting line, and that's it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, this is really across the board of like what you're looking for. Like we say advice, it could be smaller things throughout the day of like, where should I go eat dinner? Or what's the best pet food for my animal? Or, things like that,
Sure,
which I think
sure.
those are totally relevant. But when it's like really, really impactful things on your life,
Yeah.
like you're important
Mm.
and your decisions are important. And equally, where you get your advice from should be as important as you are in your own eyes.
Ooh, I like that. And I would put that side by side as we wrap up this episode of Staying Power. I put that side by side with pairing exactly what Ashley said with taking a good look at why you are looking for the advice in that moment, emotionally, what might be driving you, right? And are you really looking for advice or are you really looking for support? Those might be two different things, and you might get those things from different sources. All right. Ooh, Ashley, thank you.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much for your input on that. We hope that was helpful for all of you who are listening. And remember, if you miss any of this episode or would like to catch up on other episodes of Staying Power, you can get this as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We also have our own YouTube channel, so you can watch these episodes as well. And you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and at stayingpowershow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find out more about us at our radio home, 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle. Thank you so much to them for all their support. And there is more on the way. We will be back next week with another episode talking all about a different way to build a better life. And of course, as always, I'm just JD.
I'm always Ashley.
We will see you next week, as always.
Bye.